This got a laugh from the neuroscientist, and he continued with the questions. So, did our faded red arrogant friend give you a name? Oh, he tried. I blocked him out as he was repeating it to me. I don't want to know their names. These are demons that we're talking about. You probably have some kind of lesser guilt stigma-aligned demon attached to that asshole. They want you to know their name, and it's how they get in your head. If it was a fallen angel, I could get his name, look it up, and figure out who it was, and he'd most likely come to terms with him. But demons, screw that. The only thing I do is put them down as fast as I can and get away. Get away from them. I continue, there is literally nothing good they have to say. So if you know his name or think you know his name, forget it. Don't repeat it. Don't tell me what it is. Burn it every place you've written down. Also, tell everyone else to do the same. Every time you think about it, immediately think of something else. Their very names are a virus. He wrote this part down. Some of the other patients must have been hearing his name, or he'd been hearing the name himself. Great. The neuroscientist looked at the clock and realized time. It's almost time for you to go back. Do you have any questions for me? I thought for a second and had only one. Do you by chance know if XPX's daughter left behind any effects, like any letters? No micro expressions on his face or anything like that. Oh, no micro expressions on his face. Or anything like that? I'm trying to think of something that will lighten his mood. The neurosurgeon thought for a minute and said, No, I don't think so. It was really sad what happened, though. His poor daughter. He looked legitimately upset. The doctor continued, If I can think of anything, I'll let you know. But as far as I know, everything got taken with them. Well, when they had to go off-site. I assume his daughter's stuff went with them. Sorry. Anything else? I thought for a second and responded, No, not unless you know a way I can talk to X9X. The neuroscientist immediately said, No, that is absolutely out of the question for you to be able to talk to X9X. He is a part of our staff, and you are a patient here, and that absolutely isn't allowed. I thought to myself that was a pretty weird thing for him to say, and then he gets out his phone like he's checking his messages and messes with the rocker dials right in the middle of us talking. I hear the phone make an audible noise and get quieter down to nothing. What a weird time to do that, I thought. Then he sets the phone down next to him on the table to resume the conversation. I simply need your binder to finish filling out my report, and then I need to get to the next patient. I really appreciate your time today, XDS. And with that, and with my binder in hand, he leaves his phone right in front of me and goes to the door, very slowly, waiting for me. So, in one swift move, I grabbed the phone and put it in my pocket like I did with my phone a million times when things were normal, and locked and stepped behind him. He knocked on the door 3 times and told them it was time, and they escorted me back without searching me, through the screaming and anguish, back to my cubby to see my buddies. Except this time, I had a new phone concealed inside a pocket. Chapter 19. Back to the cubby. Night. Day 2. Double XL and XPX were turned out fine. I was happy to see. I had missed the sunset, and it was well into the night now. The screams weren't quite at a fever pitch, and it sounded like everyone might make it through the night. I waited until the orderlies were gone, and when I knew for sure they were between taking people to the lab, and decided to get the phone out. Not to make it a spectacle or play favorites, I decided I would make it equal for Double XL and XPX, and take it out for both of them to see. I scooted over to Double XL as he was drawing what looked like a farm with some livestock. I knew this would get XPX's attention, and sure enough, within a minute or so, we were all being spy-sporked. I elbowed to Double XL to get his attention for a second, and with my jacket facing back to the camera, ever so discreetly, I lifted the cell phone up out of it and hit the sleep power button so it turned on and aimed it at XPX. This way they were seeing it before I was, technically. Double XL then gave me a look like I was an idiot. I looked at it and it said password required. I put it back in sleep mode and it slipped deeper into the recess of my pocket for concealment, and I shrugged my shoulders only slightly and smiled. XPX put the seeing eye spork back in his shoe, and Double XL went back to outlining how his farm was supposed to be in his 8 crayoned glory. I needed to figure out how to crack this password, so I went back to my mat and laid down to where I knew I would be out of camera view. I took the camera back out and looked at it. It was a fairly solid password system. Every 15 seconds, there were 9 different pictures cycling through, and simply the words below, 3 attempts remaining. The pictures had absolutely no meaning to anything. Sports balls, race cars, airplanes, boys, girls, buildings, fruits, vegetables, beaches, forests, and they kept cycling through. How on earth did this password system work? It made no sense whatsoever. I put the phone back to sleep after a minute and decided not to waste the battery or risk someone seeing it. And decided to try to get some sleep. I rolled over to check, and it seemed like Double XL and XPX had both decided to do the same. The wails of anxiety seemed to have tapered off, and before long, I drifted off too. Chapter 20. Important Message. Morning, Day 3. I awoke in the morning, having only a slideshow presentation of images overnight, instead of a full-blown set of dreams, to my 3-ring binder getting returned. Double XL and XPX were stirring as well, and the sun was coming up. I sat up and opened my binder to see what was inside. I flipped through and see the corrections he made, and went to the org chart page to see he had routed out the orderlies around him and straight to the top guy. No security chief edition. That was weird, but I guess sort of expected. The top manager here expects pure direct loyalty from every single security orderly. Okay, fine. Also, the back flap had something slightly heavier in it, a note carefully put into an envelope. You've got to be kidding me, I thought to myself. It was written in kid handwriting and said, "From Esther to Daddy." I opened the flap, which had already been opened by someone else a long time ago. There was in fact a note inside, and I immediately closed the flap. This was way too personal and private for me to be looking at. I also didn't want to slide this on the floor, but I couldn't simply walk it over. That would attract way too much attention. I can't throw it to XPX, or he has to look up to catch it. Can I throw it like a ninja star and hope I don't poke his eye out or dent it against the wall if I throw too hard? I'm overthinking things like usual. I thought to myself, I need to plainly ask him. Hey, XPX. Yeah? There is a lot I can't explain right now, but there is a letter you need to read. I haven't read it, but I think you need to read it. It's for you, and I don't want to slide it over. What do you want me to do? He scooted over to indicate I should toss it to the bed. Okay, man, but no promises. And I did my best to attempt at throwing it from my cubby to his cubby to get it on the bed. Everything started off okay, but then it seemed to slow down in midair about halfway as it was spinning, and then took on a life of its own. It landed gently right next to XPX in a way I absolutely could not have thrown the letter. The words were facing him and everything. I couldn't even remember if I threw it words side up at that point. XPX, of course, did not see any of this, but Double XL's mouth was open in amazement as, despite all of the horror they'd both been seeing, I'm sure he hadn't seen anything quite like that, and neither had I, at least not fully awake like this. XPX looks over and down at it, and immediately tears start welling up in his eyes. How did you get this? He whispered waveringly. It doesn't matter right now, just read it, I said back. After reading and rereading the letter several times, he carefully folded it back up and put it back in the envelope, and then put the picture of Esther in the envelope as well, so the two items could be back together. Then he put both of them inside his breast pocket of his jacket. XPX looked up for the first time that I'd ever seen. Squinting at the light and with tears running down his face, he said, "All right, I'm in." I nod, and Double XL sort of gives a body language like, huh? And he goes back to his crayons on a blank page. Then I go back to my binder to check the front pocket because I forgot to check it. Sure enough, in the front pocket is a piece of paper that says basketball, race car, apple, island, newspaper. Brain. Oh, it spells brain. You gotta be kidding me. Freaking neuroscientists. I thought to myself. And then I tuck the password back in the sleeve where it came from and go into my corner where I could only barely be seen by the camera. I angle myself on the phone so that the camera cannot see the phone and punch in basketball, race car, Apple Island newspaper. And the phone let me right in. I could immediately see that the doctor had still been texting and emailing, so he must have had a backup and not worried about this. I checked the battery and still a full charge. It must not wear the battery down to be in Wi-Fi mode and this whole place being blanketed in wireless routers. I scrolled down and there was a weird message sent specifically to the phone. It said, XDS, message back when you get unlocked.